Hi, I'm Garrett McNamee, and I'm going to show you how to master the accents of the English language. So, a lot of people don't understand the complexity of accents and how many there are, even if we exclude non-English speaking countries. To start off local, we'll keep inside the borders of the United States and take a trip to Boston, Massachusetts, home of the Irish immigrants. Though it is difficult to pinpoint exactly where accents come from, it's believed that New England was perhaps the most English-literate speaking place in the world a few hundred years ago. Bostonians and residents of Massachusetts speak with a non-rhotic accent, which means the R is dropped in most words. For example, if I was to say that I parked my car in the garage and I walked around the corner to find the nearest yard sale, I don't pronounce the R very much. The A is also very strong, kind of like when you go to the doctor's office and they ask you to stick out your tongue. If we take a trip slightly to the south, New York, we see a similar non-rhotic accent but with a twist.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
So in New York City, especially boroughs like the Bronx and Queens, the R sound from Boston turns into an O, an AW. So if I was to go get a coffee with my friend Alphonse and then park my car in the garage and then walk around the corner to find the nearest yard sale, somebody from Boston might pick up that there's a New Yorker present, if you know what I mean. A general accent that's more commonly associated with the United States is the Southern accent.
You ain't had nothing to eat for 13 years except prison food, gopher, and a little greasy horse.
The South-South covers from about North Carolina to the pinnacle of Florida, since native Floridians don't have a Southern accent. So there's a large range of Southern accents expanding from, the very polite way of talking, less modern way, very civilized, very high class, to the hard-working man willing to sacrifice everything for his family, to the deep, deep South, such as Cajun, where sometimes I can't even understand a word they're saying. In fact, I can't even understand a word I'm saying. Expanding outside the country to Canada, there's two words that suit most Americans. That's a Canadian alarm off. That's sorry and about. A Canadian accent sometimes goes undetected by Americans until they say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I did that," or "About that guy I said I didn't like." The Canadian accent is very similar to what we know as the Minnesota region accent, which is very inviting to most Americans. "Oh, I see you got a chill there. Looks like you could use a hot bowl of tomato soup." If we take a trip way, way south, below the country, we end up in a small little island we know as Jamaica. Jamaica be a very tough accent for most Americans to do. It involves a lot of smooth flow in the voice, almost like a wave. So I gotta admit, my Jamaican is below par. But let's use the word waves, because in American, waves has an A and an E. Waves. Waves. So in Jamaican, it's more of an E and an O. So waves. Even at the end of the word, there's an waves. Look at the beautiful waves. Many people don't know that Jamaica was conquered by the English in 1665, which is why the country's national language is English. This is a good transition to our next spot on the map where the English language first blossomed, the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has a variety of accents, in fact, so many that I couldn't do it within the time limit of this video. So for the handful that I'm going to do, we'll start at the bottom, London. Now, the London accent is very thick, like a lot of the accents in the UK, and hard for most Americans to understand. The London accent, or Cockney, depending on where you live in London, has a very tough punch to it, almost like that each word stops abruptly in the end of each sentence. What throws an even larger monkey wrench into the equation of learning a London accent is Cockney slang. Now, though nobody knows the real history of Cockney slang, it's believed that it was developed by criminals and people who wanted police and authorities out of their business. For example, if I say last night me and me China went round a Jack and we all fought down a flight of apples and pears, you probably wouldn't know what I'm talking about unless you're Cockney or from London. A more understandable version of English is the General English accent, also referred to as the BBC accent.
I feel like a Chicago bootlegger.
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds almost as peculiar as you look.
This is because most people on the BBC have a very fine way of talking, almost like up and down. Veronica, it looks like there's a major storm heading from the south. If I don't make it out alive, I love you. This is Henry Osmond from the BBC. Up on the very top of the island is the great land of Scotland. Now, Scotland alone has a wide variety of accents, but the one that stands out to Americans most is the accent of Glasgow. Glasgow is a city of Scotland that borders Edinburgh, and just by the sound alone, it's hard for Americans to understand.
The thing is, your Scottish accent is so good I don't understand what you're saying.
That's how good it is.
The Glasgow accent has very large peaks and troughs to the vowels. So if I say the per in perfume is much higher than our perfume. Perfume, perfume. But when I say going for a long walk, long in Glasgow sounds like long for us. Long, long, long walk, long walk. A common misconception is that the Irish and the Scottish accent are the same when they're actually very different from each other. In a general Irish accent, you can tell that there's no rolling of the R's and flows much more smoothly than Scottish. Now, in Northern Ireland, which is still part of the United Kingdom, each sentence ends almost like there's a question mark at the end of it, making a sort of curve and pitch. Now, a lot of people don't know that Southern Ireland is actually separated from Northern Ireland. Southern Ireland, also known as the Republic of Ireland, was separated from the United Kingdom. Now, the Dublin accent, which is in the south of Ireland, is different from the Northern accent in terms of pitch. So in Northern, the pitch increases at the end of each sentence like that. In the south, it's slightly different. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Instead of increasing, it decreases at the end of each sentence. It's more of a casual way of talking in the south of Ireland. The land of Australia, where the sun beats down and the beer keeps on flowing. Australia, the land down under, is known for their thick, non-rhotic accent. Similar to Bostonian, the lack of R with A is what defines this accent. But instead of A's remaining A's, they turn into I's and O's. An Australian accent and a New Zealand accent, also known as a Kiwi accent, sound very familiar for people who don't know much about either accents. So the Kiwi accent turns the E's to I's. So if I was to write with a pen, that would be incorrect. But if I was to write with a pin, that would be correct. So probably the biggest and best thing to come out of New Zealand is Peter Jackson, the director of The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy.
Will you follow me? One last time.
And his first movie was called Bad Taste. Yeah. One of the most diverse accents on the planet is the South African accent. The South African people are very diverse, ranging from native Africans to Europeans to many more. The South African accent has similar ties with New Zealand and Australia, but also has major differences. There's a slight rolling of the R's that give a punching sound to each word, kind of like I write with a pen. The right only has one little beat to it, like I could write with a pen and I could roll up in my new car. My new car. Oh, look at my new pen, I could write with it, and I knew they don't do that. Though there are many accents that I did not touch upon, this is a broad overview of how the accents of the English language vary in so many ways. Actors must sometimes learn for months on end to perfect something even as simple as a standard English accent.
I practiced sex before. I went down to Whitley Bay and fucked a rock pool.
One of the most important things to remember is that vowels can be manipulated like clay. You can morph the sound, length, and pitch of your voice until you have reached the accent you want.
Okay. I don't remember reading about nipple clamps in the Bible.
It requires time and careful listening. And if you can do that, then any accent is possible.